Welcome back to another movie review, guys, and today I'm going to be reviewing The Wild One, starring Marlon Brando. Releasing in 1953, The Wild One stars Johnny, played by Marlon Brando, and his motorcycle gang called Black Rebels Motorcycle Club, or BRMC for short.
Hey, somebody tell me what that means. BRMC. What does it mean?
Black Rebels Motorcycle Club.
Johnny and his motorcycle gang, in the film, at the beginning of the film, roll into a town called Carbonville for a biker competition. And they raise enough hell and harass a lot of the people in town that they end up getting kicked out. And they decide to repair their bikes and get gas and things that they need in a town nearby called Wrightsville. And they continue their reign of terror in that town for the rest of the movie. The local sheriff, played by Robert Keith, is basically helpless to stop them while they fight a rival gang whose gang leader doesn't like Johnny very much. The sheriff manages to arrest the rival gang's leader, Chino. Johnny also has a love interest in this film, Kathy Bleeker, played by Mary Murphy. Kathy is a small-town girl who works at a cafe and ends up becoming infatuated by the rebellious motorcycle gang leader, Johnny. She represents a more traditional and more stable-like character to the contrast of Johnny's rebellious character, and she fills the love interest role for Johnny's character in The Wild One. There's a lot of other characters I could talk about, but they're not really like the main focus on the film. It's mostly about Johnny and Kathy's love story in this film, and the other characters just kind of like end up fading into the background when they show, like, you know, the motorcycle gangs clashing with each other and them riding the motorcycles around causing mayhem and destruction and all that. And, you know, the sheriff tries to like accommodate them while all of the people in the town are freaked out and they want these guys to like leave. You know, they show like Kathy's like infatuated with Johnny and his whole rebellious thing. And there's like a scene where they're all talking and they're like in the cafe dancing, and Kathy and her friend are like dancing with Johnny and some other guy, like some unnamed like biker guy. And Kathy's friend asks Johnny like what he's rebelling against, because she asks what their motorcycle club name is, because they have like BRMC, and they say
Black Rebels Motorcycle Club.
and they ask Johnny, like, what is he rebelling against? And he's like, what do you got? He's like, he just rebelling against everything. Like, he just wants to, like, go be a rebel, and he isn't really in support of, like, anything. He's just, like, wants to be rebellious about anything, and he really doesn't care. He just wants, to have a good time riding around with his motorcycle buddies and causing mayhem and, terrorizing towns. Looking back, this is like the kind of like the very first origin of motorcycle look and like the greaser look, because a lot of these guys, at least at the beginning of the film, they most likely probably just came out from like the war. So like this is all they really know. They got like all their buddies with them, and like they're driving their motorcycle around, and this is pretty much all they know, because most of them are probably in the Air Force, in the Army, and Johnny's like the leader, so he was probably like a captain or something, or like a something like that. But yeah, the movie doesn't really have much a story other than showing the development of Johnny and Kathy's relationship. Other than that, it just shows a motorcycle club going around driving their motorcycles, clashing with the other motorcycle gang, getting into fights with them, and I think Johnny ends up fighting the leader of the rival motorcycle club somewhere like in the film. Yeah, it just shows them talking to the bartender, joking around. There's a scene where they talk about like the slang from that time.
Bop me, Dad. I bopped it, Dad. Or you take the brew on the side on the time, and you take this bottle right to be able to up the bow. And if you want to, you take a drink, and all the family to bottle to be.
And what I think is funny is in the movie they refer to them as kids, even though half the cast for like the club probably like mid-30s to like early 40s. And these are guys who supposedly just got out of the army, and this is like kind of like them coming back from World War II. And a lot of the guys look like they're like 30 or 40, especially like the leader of the rival motorcycle club. He looks like he's like 50 or something. He looks pretty old. And a lot of the other guys They look like they're pretty old too, but they refer to them as kids for some reason. I don't get why, like, back then, especially like in movies sometimes, they would have like actors who were clearly in their 30s play like teenagers in high school. It doesn't make any sense. I mean, I get it that like the sheriff and the bartender, they're like a lot older than them, probably like in their 50s or maybe like early 60s. So to them, they'd be considered kids. They're over 18. The youngest that any of them could be is probably like 21. So towards the middle of the film, the rival motorcycle club to Johnny's club, the Beatles, come to town, and it's revealed that the leader of the Beatles, Chino, played by Lee Marvin, has a little bit of history with Johnny, the leader of the Biker Rebels Motorcycle Club, and they end up getting into a fight because Chino likes Johnny's trophy, and he reveals to everyone that Johnny did not win the trophy, and that he basically stole it, and Chino grabs the trophy, and he puts it on his motorcycle, and he says that he basically stole it from Johnny, who stole it from someone else. Now, when Johnny sees the trophy on Chino's motorcycle, he gets mad that he took it. So then they end up getting into a fight, which lasts for a little bit, and Chino ends up giving the trophy to Kathy, making fun of her.
This lovely young lady over here, she'll hold this beautiful object, signifying absolutely nothing. See how the timid maiden of the hill clutches the gold to her breast. And see how she fights back a tear while a hero bleeds to death in the street.
Round 1, fight! Final round, fight!
So the fight is stopped short when Chino is interrupted by a guy in his car passing by who's mad that there's this whole crowd of people in the street. So he gets mad at the guy in the car and goes over and picks a fight with that guy. So the sheriff finally gets tired of Chino acting up. So he comes and arrests Chino and throws him in jail, where he is for the remainder of the film. So Kathy calls out Johnny for basically being a fake, and that he's just doing all this whole act just to look all macho, and that really, like, he's not fooling anyone, and that not really genuine, and that he's just, pulling an act. So then later on, Johnny and his gang decide to go and basically do a citizen's arrest on that guy who ran into one of the bikers earlier in the movie that Chino got into a fight with, and then they lock him up with Chino, who is basically drunk and not responsive at all. So Johnny and the gang go back to the bar to celebrate because they felt like they accomplished a sense of justice, and they finally were, I guess, evening the playing field, because they felt like a lot of times they're the ones who are being arrested and looking down upon from the law. So they feel like now, like, the law is, like, being more justified now, and it's more fair, and they basically put the whole town under their own martial law. While this is going on, some of the older guys that work in town try to call the militia to come deal with this, but unfortunately the phone lines are down because earlier in the film they went and kidnapped the phone operator Dorothy, so no one is able to operate the phones, so they can't call for help. So with Chino in jail, Johnny has successfully taken over the town without any kind of competition whatsoever, and his old flame from the old bikers club, Riches, comes to him, and she professes her love to him, saying that she is still in love with him, but Johnny is obviously not interested, and he wants to be able to pursue a relationship with Kathy, and he's shoving Beatrice off and not being interested with her. While that is going on, Charlie's friends break him out so they can try and kick the biker gang out, trying to seize back control of the town. What I find funny is in this film, they want to show this whole biker gang holding up this town and, like, causing all this chaos, and, like, it's so, like, shocking and crazy, but like, in it, like, at least to today's standards, like, they're not really doing that much crazy stuff other than when they were drag racing at the beginning in town and going and doing citizens arrests, and when, you know, Johnny and Chino got into that big fight. Other than that, they're not really like doing anything real crazy. I mean, I guess they're like partying at night, so I'm assuming they probably have some kind of curfew in the town. Other than that, they're not doing anything extremely illegal stuff. They're not like going around robbing banks and stuff and like, you know, dealing drugs and things like that. I guess this is just what they thought back then, what was like quote unquote rebellious. And, you know, back then they thought this was like, you know, so wild because most people were expected to just be like quiet and like keep to yourself and like just, you know, do your job or whatever, and like not be going around like this and just partying and stuff, going to different towns, having all these parties and stuff. But yeah, other than that, like, they're not really doing that much crazy stuff. Really much like illegal things or anything like that, which most biker gangs, at least like the outlaw biker gangs, they do a lot of like illegal things, like, you know, drugs and like prostitution and things like that. But they don't show them doing that kind of stuff on this. All they're doing is just going to the bar, just drinking and like having a party. So later on, while strolling down the street at night, Kathy is ganged up upon by a couple of the guys in the Black Rebels motorcycle club. And Johnny sees this, so he comes to her aid, picking her up on his motorcycle, and they drive off to a nearby woods where he thrashes her around a little bit, trying to show her that he's like tough. And then she reveals to him that she doesn't care what he does because she trusts him, and that she knows it's all, you know, she knows it's all just an act, and that she knows who he really is now. So coming to the conclusion of the Wild One, Kathy falls to pieces in Johnny's arms and runs away. Not sure why, but she does. Johnny goes after her, and Charlie Thomas, the guy Chino got into a fight with earlier in the film, spots them. It doesn't really make any sense having them have conflict right after they create an understanding with each other, making this scene completely fucking pointless.
So what's the point?
So after Johnny and Kathy's fight, Johnny decides it's time to leave this town, so he goes to find Chino and a few of the other guys so he can leave. But he ends up getting caught by a few guys in town that are angry at him, and Kathy sees this, so she goes to her father to get him to help her. But the sheriff ends up walking in on Charlie and his friends beating the crap out of Johnny. So he tries to intervene, and these guys, you know, the guys say that like they're tired of this stuff going on for this long, and while they're distracted, Johnny ends up running away. So in conclusion, Johnny goes back to get his motorcycle so he can leave the town, but ends up being ambushed by some of the guys who have been chasing him all night. And the ambush causes Johnny to end up flying off of his motorcycle and injuring Jimmy, the cafe dishwasher. They arrest Johnny and his motorcycle gang. Fortunately for Johnny, Kathy testifies for him, and it's revealed that somebody threw a tire iron at Johnny, causing the accident and him accidentally injuring Jimmy. So the sheriff ends up letting the gang off, but tells them that they have to leave and never come back. So Johnny leaves Kathy with his trophy and a smile, and the film ends. Well, that was The Wild One. Probably one of my favorite classic films to watch. This is something that I would definitely recommend watching if you're into this kind of stuff and you're into like that kind of look. And this is something that really showed the start of a whole era and like a whole culture of like motorcycles. Motorcycle gangs have been around way before this, but this film was what really put it on the map for America, and what really got a lot of teenagers into this look. And the whole subculture of like greasers and like motorcycles, where they're showing that it's kind of connected, but they're a little bit different because not all motorcycle gangs have like all greasers in the gang, but some of them, some of the guys in it, they could be greasers. But yeah, this really showed like the beginning of like a whole subculture of like the leather jacket and like greasy hair and like the boots and all that. But yeah, I really enjoyed this film. It was definitely like the best film that Marlon Brando is in, which he was very good in other films such as The Godfather and other stuff. But this one is what really put him on the map for like acting, and I really enjoyed this film, and I definitely recommend this film to anyone who's into these kind of movies. And yeah, that's all for today. Make sure you subscribe and hit notification bell so you're notified whenever I post.
Please, don't cross the track. Don't get hurt. Mud makes everything slippery.